Good morning to everybody. Well, I want to thank the opportunity which has been given to the European Commission to give these welcoming words for the second day. And I'll try to structure on three topics, many coming also from yesterday, and I was revising my notes this morning on some of the issues of yesterday. The first point is there a change in paradigm with regards to agriculture in development? What does that mean for the research agenda, the international research agenda? And as a major development cooperation actor, what are the implications? I think that on the first point, there is obviously something happening something has happened over the last 10 years on the way the world looks at agriculture. If we see what happened in Paris, where agriculture was back or was put at the core of the climate change agenda. Last year on the CBD of Cancun, a little bit the same thing happened on the biodiversity. Agriculture was there put at the head. But it's also the whole debate on peace, on stability, on security, where agriculture and what's happening in the rural areas is very much put in the forefront today. And it's this sector as a provider of food, but also provider of many other services in a bioeconomy concept, and as an engine of jobs and growth. And that's a debate today, which in Europe is very important in the face of the migration agenda. So you see, agriculture, the way the world looks at agriculture is changing. What does it mean for the research agenda? I've taken, to structure my thoughts, the four axes of the last Horizon 2020 calls for proposal. I'm not going to explain you the call for proposal, of course, but I think that some of the concepts there are interesting to highlight to us some of the key ideas. The first line is climate change and resilience on land and at sea. And if we think that last month there was a major conference in Malta on oceans governance, we see that the oceans is an issue which is upcoming strongly. It has a lot about resource management, a lot about food, and about security for many people living on the coast. The climate change we have largely discussed. It calls for a continuous agenda of research where agriculture is there. It's the whole debate of sustainable intensification, agroecology, and so on, and that you know that very well. But it's also the resilience, and resilience is very important today in the world agenda because essentially what's happening is that the calls on humanitarian response, on emergency response, are becoming very high. They may not be affordable, and resilience has come there to assist us. But what we miss today is a matrix on resilience, and that's a point that we are short for. The second line, and it was mentioned yesterday in the panel on Latin America, it's making the transition towards a circular bioeconomy. Two concepts are put together, the bioeconomy, which is agriculture, provider of linking it to biomass, linking it to the energy, and the circularity, the circular economy. Can it be applied to this particular economic sector? And implementing the circular economy principles and resource efficiency across the whole food system is a strategic issue. This calls for research around reducing food losses and waste, around many more the residues, safe reuse of some of the products, but this will deal and conclude into new business models for the value chains. And there is a lot of work, and yesterday there was discussion on the work with the private sector and new partnerships. And I think that's on the circular bioeconomy, this is where we can see that there will be new models of partnership where additionality of public money has to be demonstrated and has to be shown. The third line of Horizon 2020 is future-proofing our food systems. How can we foster a food system for healthy lifestyles? This is the link with the nutrition. And clearly, in the developing world, economic growth is creating a dietary transition. How can research help underpin that transition in a way that is positive for health? Do we understand how to promote wide consumption decisions? This is also, and we have to be clear, that there will be more and more call for attention from the society in the developing economies on food safety and on quality. This is a new field of research in many of these countries. But, and it, of course, technological processes, but a lot of social research, and this is a lot of the part of today's discussion, to better understand the consumer attitudes, the values, which are far beyond pure economic values. Research must also address, in our view, how to increase equity in the food system. This is important. This is really where the development and the poverty is taken into consideration. And it has to promote the dignity of farming. This is something which is, farming has to regain this dignity and to make sure that gives a provider a future. And then there is an area which is, I feel, not where we have conflicting arguments, is the whole issue of labor. We have, I think, labor in agriculture. We have very different stories today. And it's not clear when we talk of technology how they behave with regards to labor. The fourth line of Horizon 2020 is developing smart and connected territories. This is a territorial approach. Another area which is coming, and in Colombia, it was said yesterday, I think the whole peace agreement is very much strongly based on this territorial approach. There again, research on how to manage the agricultural landscapes for all the services which is expected, and which type of governance can be applied to balance the good land use for food versus other services, and to ensure the economic growth and the sustainability. These are the 4 lines, and you see really new important attentions. But now let me take my hat from development cooperation and quote Commissioner Fischler. Governments across the world struggle with the valley of death between research undertaken and its uptake into innovation and use. The EU grants every year 1.2 billion euros to the development of sustainable agriculture and food and nutrition security. This is grant money in more than 60 countries. This is 23% of our development cooperation envelope. What is going to research entities out of this money? Something 5 to 8% of the envelope. But the challenge, and part of it is the CG, part of it is other research entities. The challenge is how to boost innovation in the other 95%, not on the money which is going to the research entities. That requires that we look at innovation with these technologies, the organizational components, that we recognize that technology is an element of the innovation, but not the only element of the innovation process. And that is a driving force. And if we want to reach the objectives of the SDGs, we need to have this innovation boosted in this 95%, in this 1 billion euro. And it is a challenge because it's bringing more science into development and new ways. It's not asking the scientists to move into the development, it's how can you get the development actors calling more on the scientific entities, bring them more into these processes. It's the science backstopping of development projects. It's linking research to major development initiatives, making use of what is available and making sure that they are used there. And it's really research into use. We need to have more research into use to justify, this is for the research entities, for the 5% or the 8%, we need to justify that research is put into use so that development cooperation money is granted to research entities. We have a research agenda, we have a development agenda. They are two complementary agendas, and we try to make them coherent. But this means also that we have to move further the paradigms on the linear relationship between science, research, extension, use. It's more, and we work with the FAO very strongly on the agriculture innovation systems concept, to test them in certain countries, to analyze them. We see that many more actors are changing, and this is a question how we can foster that and use this as innovation process. But this also questions, and that will be my last point before I conclude, the research infrastructure. Its efficiency, its organization, this institutional architecture, the way it is governed, the way it responds to requests. We are here in a system, the CG, which is quite well established in terms of this governance, but we have the other actors, and we need to make sure that at the global level, in particular regions, and in particular in Africa, we have a research infrastructure which is conducive, and we have I don't want to say it's both a partnership, but it's division of labor, and to know what people do, and no entity will do everything. Money is too scarce for that. To conclude, innovation is in the core of the policy of the European Union. It concerns, and we try, as I tried to show, it's both the research policy, but the development cooperation policy as well. And the global political agenda is increasingly putting attention on the importance of innovation if we want to achieve our targets. Research for development, agriculture research for development. A chicken and egg question somehow, because we know that it's one and the other. And these will be trade-offs for policymakers in agricultural research. In the 90s, there was a substantial thinking on agricultural research for development, and a theoretical thinking. What does it fulfill? How does it operate? Do we need, and that's a question maybe for the audience, to revamp a thinking on agricultural research for development to address these upcoming challenges, which are beyond agriculture and food, but also the other services that this sector provides to the society? I thank you very much, and I wish you a very good day.